Are you a bourbon person that's curious about Scotch?
We're going to give you 5 scotches that you might enjoy as a bourbon drinker.
Stay tuned after the break to find out. So we're welcoming back Brett to the channel, and we're talking about one of his favorite topics, Scotch.
Scotch. Yeah,
Scotch.
I do enjoy a good scotch, for sure.
Yeah, you're our Scotch and mini guy.
A little bit. I do prefer scotch, I think, just a little bit to bourbon. I definitely enjoy both of them. Definitely lean a little bit more on the side of scotch, even though my collection isn't like super huge. I haven't had a ton of like the really big name, like hard to find, super expensive ones.
And I do, if we want to call it, I main bourbon. Like
Right.
most of the time, if I'm buying whiskey, it's probably bourbon, unless I'm finding something that I'm really, really interested in. For the most part, when I'm drinking, I'm leaning towards bourbon. But I'm very malt curious, as I like to refer to myself. I'm more open to it than I would say the average bourbon drinker is. So we're going to kind of talk about 5 scotches specifically. We're not going world whiskeys here. We're going definitely just scotch because we received this comment from Sherry, who is interested in scotch despite her thoughts on the last live stream. She did ask for this.
It's for you.
Yeah, it's for you. You asked for this, you get this. And with that being said, if you have ideas that you want us to make content in the future, definitely drop those in the comments. If you think there's scotches that a bourbon drinker might like, definitely drop those in the comments because people don't always agree with our lists, and that's fine. But they may check out your list as well. So be sure to drop those in the comments.
Yeah.
Let's talk just slightly about what our criteria for this is.
Yeah, so we just want to make sure that we're outlining what we're looking for in a scotch that might relate a little bit closer to bourbon. So we're definitely looking for things that are not super peaty, not super smoky. There's no Isla in our list at all. Something that's definitely a little bit more approachable in terms of like the sweetness, general bourbon notes that you get. What was that?
General bourbon notes.
Oh, general.
It's a How I Met Your Mother thing.
But yeah, we are also looking at things that aren't just 80 proof. I know a lot of scotches do come in at like the 80, 86 range. There's 1 or 2 on our list, but we're definitely trying to find those ones that are in the 90s and 100s for you guys.
With scotch, I think a lot of those like dirty sock type notes that people complain about,
Band-Aids,
are not as prevalent at higher proofs.
Yeah, I would
So
agree.
not smoky, not peaty, and not 80 proof. So
Yeah.
do you want to intro our first bottle?
Yeah, absolutely. So coming in at number 5 on our list is Compass Box Orchard House. It is a 92 proof scotch, coming about $60 or under. You can find it for less.
Yeah, we had that for 12 days 2 years ago, and we kind of picked it because when we do 12 days of whiskey for our Fourth Friday tasting group, we kind of try to pick whiskeys that expand but aren't like stretching the limits of what our members care for. So 12 days for at least the last 2 years has really been a you and me thing, which has been a lot of fun to curate that list.
Yeah, it has been fun putting that list together.
And then the Orchard House had a lot of really like winey notes. If you want to check out the actual video where I think Brett did the tasting for it for 12 days.
I don't remember. It was 2 years ago.
One of us did. Yeah, one of us did. And it will be up in the cards here above Brett's head. And so if you want to check that out, the most fruity, probably the most like delicate, while still being flavorful scotch that I've had.
Yeah. So with the name Orchard House, you're going to have a lot of those fruit notes. It does come through with that. Apples and pears and peaches. Yeah, it's a really good product. It's a blend, so not your hoity-toity single malt with that fruity notes. With it being pretty approachable, we think you guys would enjoy that as bourbon drinkers.
I think the little bit of proof behind it too also kind of like deepens that flavor profile.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked enough about Orchard House. Let's move on to the next one, and this was actually Brett's pick, but I'm going to talk about it because he talked about the first one.
Yeah.
The Balvenie. Pretty sure it's the Balvenie. 14.
Balvenie. Yeah, I've heard it said both ways.
Caribbean cask? Is that how you say it? I say Caribbean sometimes.
It depends. I think if I'm talking about the movies, I'm talking about
Pirates
the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to like on a cruise. I'm going to the Caribbean.
Yeah, one of those is right. I don't know which one it is. So either way, the Scotch is 86 proof. It is rum finished, which is really interesting. That's where the Caribbean part comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's about $100-ish. And we did, well, actually, you and Nate did a video on it.
Yeah, a few years ago
Of that. And one of the ones that's later on our list,
mm-hmm.
and a curveball that I tried to throw you.
And a single malt from John. A combination of multiple scotches from the same distillery.
It was finished with a French oak stave. If you're interested in that video, check it out. It'll be up above Brett's head once again. So I think it's got a lot of those rum type, like somewhat fruity, somewhat like sugar cane kind of notes into it. My like lingering thoughts on it is it's a little bit salty.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being a little bit like salty, briny, but still having a lot of those good flavors. And sometimes rum is that way too. Sometimes rum has a little bit of those. If you're interested at all in rum, that might be something that you look for.
Right. Yeah. And I think rum gives it like a depth of flavor as well. I definitely remember there being like some vanilla on there and almost leaning towards brown sugar. You know, it has some vanilla notes. It has those dark, like deeper sugar cane notes. And that's why it makes this list for us. So yeah. You want to go into the next one?
Sure.
We'll go to the next one. This is from a pretty small region of Scotch. This is Springbank 10 from Campbelltown or Campbellton, however you say it. And it is 96 proof. This comes in around $100. About around 100. It's Scotch. It's going to be pricier. So we had this at a tasting recently for our Fourth Friday group, and it came in pretty highly rated amongst the group. I'm trying to even remember the tasting notes at this point, but
I remember a lot of like fruitiness to it, and it was a little, I think, creamy. Like I think I got a little bit of like a sweet cream, like vanilla kind of thing off of it. It had just a little bit of like leather and tobacco on the back end, which are generally things that I like to balance out fruit and sweetness. So
yeah, it was the third whiskey of the night, so things kind of So that creaminess is definitely there. Vanilla notes, and like you said, like that tobacco leather on the back end, really balancing out. I'm just repeating what you said, but like I'm agreeing with you, and now remembering that whiskey, it had more to it than the typical Scotch notes that you find that are like not really malty, not really super briny or anything like that. So it was really good.
Yeah, it is a little on the difficult side to find at some points. Like it is one of the ones that's more sought after, and possibly that's why it's on this list. I mean, we were able to find it on short notice. So it's not that hard, but I mean, if you have a Total Wine around you, they will generally get it at least once or twice a year. So just stay kind of vigilant for that. I don't think Pennsylvania gets it.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's a little bit skimpy on the Scotch side. I feel like
they might get it, and it might be a special order. I'm not sure. When special orders aren't available, they don't show up on the site.
I want to take number 2 so that you can take number 1 because I know you love number 1.
Okay.
So going on to number 2 on our list is the Glenmorangie Lasanta, which is about $60. This is also above 90 proof at 92 proof. And this actually, I see it fairly regularly at state stores in Pennsylvania.
It's ex-bourbon and I think ex-sherry is what I saw when I was looking at it. Check the description if you want to know more about these bottles. I will also say, well, we're kind of paused here. And then I'll let you finish. Like I'm Kanye and you're Taylor Swift. There is a specific one that we tasted. There is an 86 proof one out there that I think is a former release. The one that is popped up on screen is the one that you should be looking for. It's a little bit sleeker of a design.
So the Lasanta was actually in our Fourth Friday tasting for Highland Scotches. Yeah. It blew away the competition, I think, on that night. Maybe not blew away, but was the highest rated from that evening from our group. I just remember it has some really nice vanilla notes to it. Highlands are known for being a little bit more like caramels and vanillas. If you're looking for just generally a region to try out, like Highland might be the best option to go at. Not too briny, not too malty. Definitely coming through with some of those like caramel notes. And it's darker. It's a darker Scotch than what you're used to seeing with those like normally like lighter tan. This definitely had some color to it.
I would also maybe caution that they can add caramel coloring in Scotch, so it could be colored. Color is not necessarily an indicator of quality. However,
that note.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
However, one of our first Fourth Friday people who is typically a Scotch hater called this Christmas in a glass.
He did.
That honestly is probably the biggest compliment that we can give it.
Someone who's very much known for not liking Scotch whiskey.
The word, yeah, the word ass is thrown around a lot when we're doing Scotch tastings with Justin. So
this smells like apples and ass. Any Scotch or smoking ass if it's Island Night or something. We bring it up as Christmas in a glass. It also has some like spicy notes to it. Some baking spices.
Mm-hmm. Did we talk about price?
Yeah, this one's like 60. I think I mentioned it was 60.
Well, let's discuss that price too, because that is actually a really good price for Scotch. To find something that's 92 proof and something that I think you'll really enjoy.
Definitely not all that expensive in terms of Scotches. As Scotches go, it's one of the cheaper on our list.
Last one?
On to number one.
All right.
What is it?
The last one on our list is Aberlour A'Bunadh.
Surprise!
And it's not a surprise to anybody who watches the channel when we talk about Scotch ever at all.
Very true.
Because it's a cask strength Scotch, but it's a high proof cask strength Scotch. So some cask strengths for Scotch are in the like 110 to 114 range. A lot of the releases that I've seen, and it does vary by batch, but I've had, I think, at least 2 bottles that were over 120 proof of Aberlour A'Bunadh. So it is a Speyside. It has a lot of, I think, traditionally Speyside flavors. It's not too malty for me. So malt is one of those things that in large concentrations, I think is too much. In certain whiskeys, Lagavulin one, Monkey Shoulder is another, that have just like a malty taste that borders on vomit, which is a real scientific thing. It's butyric acid, throwing that out there. Not everybody gets it. It's like cilantro with the soap flavor, where it's a flavor that some people get, but not everybody. So Aberlour A'Bunadh, I think, is one that a lot of our friends who are bourbon drinkers have talked about as being a Scotch that they would drink on a pretty consistent basis. Brown sugar, maybe a little bit of cherry notes, and then like not a lot of oak on the finish, and a lot of like good solid flavors. And I mean, it is 120 proof, so it is a little bit spicy, but it's still got that Scotch refinement to it. Yeah, still got a good amount of nuance, and it's probably my favorite Scotch, for being real.
It's hard to disagree on this one with that sentiment. As a Scotch, it's interesting that it brings out more, like the delicacy is still there while still being 120 proof. I think that's what
you got real close to saying it brings out more flavor.
I didn't, though. Did I?
You didn't say it, but that's because you caught yourself.
Okay. More delicate.
All right.
More lovely.
All right.
Not going to say it. Yeah, it's just a really good Scotch. So, really good offering. Yeah.
So, those are, I think, 5 Scotches that if you are a bourbon drinker and you are curious about Scotch, that you could probably try. If you have other Scotches that you as a bourbon drinker also enjoy, drop those in the comments.
I definitely want to know if anyone has any like Scotches that they found, like as a bourbon drinker, you enjoy these Scotches.
Yeah.
And kind of have that profile. Definitely interested to know about those.
If you want to suggest content for us to do in the future, drop a comment. If you like this content, check out our other videos. Please like and comment on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And Brett, what should they do?
I hope you'll join us in drinking like a gentleman. Cheers.
Cheers. Nailed it. High five. Done. All right.